Welcome to my prenatal class. Maybe you're here for the very first time in the virtual room of Balanzs, and maybe you've been here before, but first of all, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Rachel. I'm the prenatal teacher in The Hague at Balanzs, and I always have a certain way of teaching my classes, so I hope you'll enjoy it. We're going to start in a seated position, and we're going to lift our buttocks a little off the floor and then start dropping our sitting bones. And we bring our hands over our knees, or if you like, you can rest them on top of your belly. We're going to start and circle our shoulders, and we're going to make big circles to the back. This releases the tension around the shoulders and the neck, top of the back. And we're going to make those same circles forward as well. Now, as you probably have noticed that during your pregnancy, your whole body changes. Everything changes. It's a part of hormones, it's the baby growing, and it's your own body that's growing. So your movement will feel different as well, and especially if this is, a regular thing you're doing, yoga, then you'll find it maybe more difficult to move freely during your pregnancy. Now, in your next in-breath, we're going to lift both of the shoulders up towards the ears. And while you exhale, you can exhale through your nose or through your mouth and just release softly. Now let's close our eyes. And we try to soften our face, and we try to soften our facial features. Now slowly try to close yourself off from everything around you. Sounds, energy, smells. And let's bring the awareness inside of you. Bring your awareness towards your baby or babies. And every inhale, we try to make space. We expand the belly. Our ribcage opens and our chest rises forward. And while we exhale, our body moves back into its neutral form. So while you inhale, feel how your body opens up. And on an exhale, moves itself back. Maybe you can try to lengthen every in and every out breath. And it can help to bring your hands over to the belly if you don't have them there yet. So while you inhale, feel how your belly expands more. And on an exhale, how it falls back. Inhale, belly rises. And exhale, belly falls. Inhale, try to count. 4 to 6 counts in, and also 4 to 6 counts out. Let's try to do that a few times in a row. So we inhale, and slowly exhale. Our belly breath is a breath that we use when we're fully calmed down, when we're relaxed, and when we can relax. So say when we're laying down on the couch reading a book or watching a movie, or maybe when you're laying down in your bed comfortably with all your cushions around you, reading or sleeping, taking a nap. The breath that we use more often is our ribcage breath. That means that we bring our fingers right underneath our chest and our palms move over our ribcage. Our shoulders are soft and our elbows are still moving sideways. While you breathe in, you feel how your ribcage expands sideways. And while you exhale, how it falls back into form. So let's inhale, open. And exhale, release. This breath is a breath that we use quite often, actually. We use it during our daily activities, working from home or moving a bit. The counting is quite similar to the belly breath, maybe a little shorter, 4 to 5 counts in and out. And feel free to breathe in through the nose and to exhale through the mouth. We're going to bring our fingertips right underneath our collarbone. It's our chest that rises and falls. It's the shortest breath that we have, and it's quite similar to hyperventilating. Let's say 1 or 2 counts in and 1 or 2 counts out. And it's the breath that we use when we're overactive, when we're really excited, maybe even a bit stressed out. So you breathe in through your nose, you can breathe out through your nose as well. So inhale 1 or 2 counts, and exhale 1 or 2 counts. Let's do that again. So in, out, in, out, in, out. And you might feel that it's less comfortable than the ribcage breath or the belly breath. It's a breath that's quite spunky, almost like fire. Now what we're going to do is we're going to combine all 3 breaths. So we start in the belly and then we lift it up all the way up to the chest. So let's bring our left hand on top of the belly and our right hand on top of the chest. Now we start deep, so we're going to breathe in, and then we're going to move it over to the rib cage, expand, and then you're going to rise your chest a little, and then you're going to exhale slowly in 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And let's repeat this. So we're going to inhale, lengthen yourself, rise. It's like your crown is going all the way up towards the ceiling, so you breathe in. And then slowly breathe out. Exhale in 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's release. Let's bring our hands over to our knees and go back to our neutral breath. Just breathe in and out through your own pace. If you like, you can start to open up the eyes and then take your arms all the way up towards the sky. That's inhale. And exhale, bring your hands in front of the heart. Let's do this again. Let's inhale, lengthen. And exhale, hands in front of the heart. One more time. Inhale. And exhale, hands in front of the heart. Maybe you'd like to set an intention, because maybe there's something you would like to achieve or let go of. And And it can be something physically, maybe something in your movements. It can also be something spiritually or mindful. Now let's breathe in, take our arms up. And while we breathe out, we're going to drop our right hand next to us and softly start to stretch our left arm over. So it's not about how deep you can stretch. You want to keep your shoulders soft. And you're going to stretch a little. Now let's inhale, rise, take both of your arms up, and while you exhale, you're going to make that same movement to the other side. Now relax your shoulder. Try to drop your elbow. We inhale, we take both of our arms back up, and while we exhale, we're going to move our hands behind us. So we're going to interlace our fingers and then softly start to open up the chest. Feel the space you can create in your chest, but also in your belly. Let's breathe in, take your arms up. And while you breathe out, you're going to round your spine. Breathing in, we're going to take both of our arms up. Breathing out, we bring our hands in front of the heart. Now, before we start our class, before we start moving, I want you to remember a few things. Whenever a movement is a little too much for you, you can always come back into a seated position, or if a child's pose is comfortable for you, move yourself into a child's pose, but try not to stay there too long. Now, if you have any discomfort around your pelvis, pelvic floor muscles, make sure that you don't do the balance poses. So you can do it as long as both of your feet stay on the floor, and that also is valid during your warrior poses. So try not to open up your legs too wide, but try to keep your steps a little smaller. Now let's bring our hands in front of us. We're going to move ourselves up, and then we bring our hands underneath our shoulders, and our knees are underneath our hips. Now while we inhale, we start to lift up the tailbone, and we're going to release vertebrae for vertebrae. And we're going to do that slow, and then softly start to drop the back of the head over to the top of the back. And while you exhale, you're going to round your spine. Now while you round your spine, you drop your chin all the way down to the chest. So let's inhale. Lift up the tailbone, start releasing vertebrae for vertebrae, drop the back of the head. And exhale, round your spine and start dropping your chin to the chest. Let's do that again. So we inhale. And we exhale. Now take your time for every movement. Eventually, it's your in-breath that lengthens your spine, and you're going to stretch your right leg behind you, but you're going to keep your toes on the floor. Now we're going to pull in our belly button towards the baby. So we start activating our core a little. We still have a core. And then you're going to try and lift your right leg a little up, not higher than the hip, and then you're going to release it back down. Now let's try that again. So we lift it, and we release it. Up, and down. One more time. And then we're going to bring our toes back to the floor, and we're going to stretch our left arm forward. Now while you lift your arm, you keep your toes on the floor, and then you start dropping your fingertips, and you start lifting up your leg. Now let's try that again. So we drop our toes, and we lift our arm, and we drop our arm, and we lift our leg. A few more times. Up and down. Now let's do that one more time, and then you bring your hands back underneath your shoulder. Now make sure that your shoulders are still on shoulder width, Your toes stay on the floor, but we're going to take a big step to the side. So our hands are underneath our shoulders, and we're going to step our foot all the way out sideways, drop the side of the foot as well, and then start opening up our arm all the way up towards the ceiling. Now while you breathe out, while you exhale, you start moving your sitting bones back and start stretching your arm forward. Now what you can feel is a stretch around the calf muscle, inner thigh. And now we start to inhale, open up. Let's try that again. So we're going to move ourselves back and forth. Let's do that one more time. So we move back, we drop our hands, and we're going to stretch our arms a bit further forward. Tuck the chin to the chest and lengthen the spine. Now let's breathe in, lift ourselves up, hands come underneath our shoulders, and we're going to step our foot all the way to the outside of the hand. And we're going to do that by heel-toeing the foot. Small steps, baby steps, and we always move around the hands, around the hips. Now we start moving ourselves a bit forward, so our knee comes over the ankle. And we're going to move ourselves a bit back as well. You can keep your toes grounded on the floor, but if you want, you can start lifting up the toes as well and start pushing your heel a bit more down into the floor. And then we roll back forward. Let's do that again. So back and forth. Let's do that once more. And while you move yourself forward, your back knee is still underneath your hip. Your front knee is above the ankle. We're going to lift ourselves up into a modified warrior two. So we don't open up our hips too much. We stay grounded. And also when you have problems around your pelvic floor muscles, you can try to do this movement. Now let's bring our arm into our lower back and then start stretching our other arm over into a peaceful warrior. And while you move yourself forward, you're going to take your arm around the belly and then start stretching your arm all the way over. Now you start lengthening up from the hip, the waist, the rib cage, all the way over to your fingertips. Now let's move ourselves back, taking our arm back into our lower back, stretching over. And we move ourselves forward. We're going to do that one more time. Reaching back, lengthening that front part without making it too much into a back bend. And we move ourselves forward and we windmill the arms. So we drop our hands underneath our shoulder, take our other hand with, and we step our knees back towards each other. Now let's bring our awareness towards the tailbone. The tailbone is the end of our spine. And with the end of our spine, we're going to try and make small circles. Soft circles. And we're going to try and make those same small circles the other way around, especially if you have any issues around the lower back. This can feel really nice to release a little bit of tension around that area. During your pregnancy, you will notice that everything is working a bit different, also your intestines. And circling of the tailbone, but also massaging the tailbone can work. Now, let's start from the top. We keep our hands underneath our shoulders, and we're going to stretch our left leg back. Now we lengthen. We start moving our belly button in towards our baby, squeezing the baby a little. And then we're going to lift our leg up, not higher than the hip. It's just a small movement, especially works very nicely for those lower back muscles. And then we're going to drop our toes back down. Let's try that again. We lift it up, we release it back down. Let's do that one more time, and then we keep our toes on the floor. And we start stretching our right arm forward. Now the moment that you lift up your arm, you keep your toes down and vice versa. So we take our arm up, and while we drop the fingertips, we lift our leg a little. Now drop the toes, take the arm up. One at a time. Let's do this 2 more times. And after that last one, you bring your hands and you bring your toes down. And you're going to take that big step sideways. So you drop your foot, you drop your big toe, you release your whole foot down. Feel that stretch, and maybe you feel a difference in between the left and right side, something that's very normal. And we start taking our arm all the way up, and we reach for the sky. And we start moving ourselves back. So we stretch our arm forward, move our sitting bones back, and then we lift ourselves, we open. Let's try that again. So we move ourselves back and forth. One more time, let's move ourselves back, stretch, feel what happens there. We lift, and then we drop our sitting bones back, we stretch our arms forward, we tuck our chin and relax for a moment. Now try to feel that stretch without overstretching. So if it hurts, if you feel anything of discomfort, just release maybe the toes or step your foot a little closer in, bend your knee a little. And then we're going to roll up. Hands move underneath our shoulders, and we heel toe the foot all the way to the outside of the hand. So it's baby steps. We move ourselves a bit forward, so our knee moves above the ankle. Try not to move it too far over. And then we're going to move ourselves back. Now you can keep your toes on the floor if it feels comfortable, but you can also lift them. Let's do that again. So we move ourselves back and forth. Now during a prenatal class, I always make sure that all my students, all my yogis have blocks and bolsters to use, but also if you like something warm like socks or a sweater. You can use the block at all times for every movement that we have. Let's do this one more time. So we move ourselves up. Then we're going to take our right arm back and our left arm forward. So we're back into that modified warrior two. Our knee is underneath the hip. Our other knee is above the ankle. So we try not to open up too much here. Now let's move ourselves back. So we start reversing. We take our arm into our lower back. We move over, we reach, and then we start moving ourselves forward. So we take our arm around the belly and we start stretching our arm all the way over forward. Let's do this again. So we move ourselves back, reverse, open, reach, and we move forward. Let's do that again. So let's move ourselves back, reverse, and while we move forward, we take our arm around the belly. We start stretching our arm all the way down. Let's add, and then we're going to step our knees back. Now our knees are still underneath the hips, and we're going to tuck our toes. Now, toes tucked means that you start stretching those soles of the foot. Now, if you can, you try to release your sitting bones all the way down. Now, try to really move all toes underneath your foot. It's what we call the yoga toe stretch. One of the reasons why we do this stretch during this class is because it activates the bloodstream moment that you come out of the pose. Now let's breathe in, take both arms up, reach for the sky, soften your shoulders, and then you're going to take your hand all the way over to the top of the back and move your other hand on top of the elbow so you feel a nice stretch around the shoulders and top of the back. Now, if you have cramps during the night, or maybe even during the day, or restless legs, you can do this yoga toe stretch. It helps. It really, really helps. Now, let's see if we can switch arms. And I know it feels a bit like you're wearing high heels for the very first time. It's not the most comfortable pose during my class. We're going to lift, untuck the toes, and then we're going to drop our hands. Now we move ourselves into a tabletop. So our hands are underneath our shoulders, our knees are underneath our hips, but we're going to flip our fingers towards the knees. Now why do we flip our fingers towards our knees? That's because we want to overstretch our elbows and wrists for a moment. Why? Because it activates the bloodstream afterwards, and it helps when you have sleeping fingers, tingling fingers. Maybe you've heard of carpal tunnel syndrome, a syndrome that happens during pregnancy and also during other hormonal or sometimes because of work situations. And you feel tingling fingers, sleeping fingers. It feels like the bloodstream stops somewhere. Now let's move ourselves a bit back and forth. And we're going to do that. And let's see if you can make that space a little bigger. So we're going to roll over the hands. Now we're going to circle the other way around as well. And we start moving ourselves back. We flip our fingers sideways. And then we start moving our hands to the front of our mat. Okay, now let's tuck our toes. We move our sitting bones towards the heels. We're going to lift our knees a little off the floor. And then we're going to lift ourselves up and release both of the heels down. Now, it's not about who can touch the floor. It's about your sitting bones lifting up towards the sky. And you want to lengthen your spine. You want to soften your shoulders. Drop your chin towards the chest. And then we're going to move a little with the hips and move ourselves a bit from left to right. Now, take a look at your hands. We're going to walk ourselves forward. Now make sure that you step your feet behind the hands so they're still in hip width. Now you inhale, you bring your fingertips either up towards the shins, and you try to lengthen your spine, and you release a little. Now let's breathe in, take both of our arms up. We're going to lift them up towards the sky, soften the shoulders, and while you exhale, you bring your hands in front of the heart. Now, I always make sure that my feet are underneath our hips, and the easiest way to measure for yourself is by bringing your heels together and then rolling them over to the big toes. Now, let's close our eyes for a moment and try to feel how we're standing right now. So try to feel how your toes are touching the floor, the front of the foot, the back of the foot. And then we're slowly going to lift all 10 toes off the floor. Now you might feel that the weight of your body is moving a bit more to the outside of the foot or maybe a little bit more in. Now we try to keep it on all 4 points of the foot. So try to move it to the side that you don't feel too much. And then we're going to roll one toe at a time down. So we start at our baby toes and we start dropping them all the way over to our big toe. And this way we make active feet. And active feet always helps in our standing postures. Now let's breathe in, take our arms up. And while we breathe out, we're going to roll ourselves forward. We're going to do that vertebrae for vertebrae. Our feet are still in hip distance and we roll ourselves down. Now we inhale, we bring our fingertips up towards the shins. While we exhale, we drop our hands. We're going to take a big step back with our right foot, followed by our left, moving ourselves into a downward facing dog. Now let's move our knees down. We're going to move the body weight a bit forward. So pull your belly button in towards your baby, squeeze it a little. We're going to move ourselves into a modified chaturanga. So you bend your elbows, you drop yourself just a little, you move yourselves up, you open up the knees, and then we're going to stretch back. So you're going to try and bring your sitting bones over to the heels, tuck your chin in. Now if this doesn't feel comfortable at all, you can roll yourselves up, move yourselves in a seated position, and just relax your face, your facial features. Close your eyes. Bring your awareness back towards the baby and try to close yourself off from everything around you. Now let's move ourselves back. First into all fours, tabletop, tuck the toes. Let's lift up the sitting bone. Stretch yourselves all the way up and start with the pedaling of the feet. Now let's move ourselves forward. So we're going to walk our feet behind your hand. And it's okay if you can't reach fully. There's an easy way to bring your hands over towards the shins. So you start to lift yourselves halfway. Now move yourselves a bit forward. We're going to take both of our arms up, reach for the sky, and then we move our hands back in front of the heart. Now try to close your eyes and just feel how you're standing. And it's your natural position. So maybe you have quite an arch in the lower back. Maybe you start rounding a bit more on the front of your bed. But you can also round yourselves a bit too much. Maybe this is your natural pose. Or maybe you can stand up straight all the time. Now let's try to stand up straight. We bring our belly button in towards our baby. We tuck our tailbone just a little bit more. Remember where the tailbone is? Now this way we start activating. During pregnancy, it often is the case that we arch the spine a little too much. It's no biggie. We're very proud of what we're carrying inside of us. So we want to show, and our body does the same. But this is what happens. We don't want that. We want length. We want length here, and we want strength here. Now let's breathe in, take our arms up. Then we breathe out, we bring our hands in front of the heart. We're going to roll ourselves forward, vertebrae for vertebrae. And we inhale, we bring our fingertips back up to the shins. While we exhale, we roll ourselves down. We take a big step back with our left foot this time. And then we add our right, move ourselves up into a downward facing dog. Now let's roll our knees down. Then we move our body weight a little forward. So we drop our hips, we move our belly button in towards the baby or babies. We squeeze, we start moving ourselves back down, lifting up, and we roll ourselves back. Now we roll ourselves back into an extended child's pose. So open up your knees just a little further. Start moving your sitting bones back, releasing your arms. If you want, you can move your elbows next to your head and then bring your hands over to the top of the back. Now inhale, bring your hands back underneath your shoulders, roll yourselves back up, back into all fours. We're going to circle the hips, so we're going to move a bit from side to side and try to make space. Now try to take your whole body with if it feels good. Or if it doesn't, you just make the circles a little smaller. Maybe you can make 8s with your body. Roll yourselves from side to side, relaxing those shoulders. And then we move ourselves back. We move ourselves back into a tabletop pose. Now we tuck our toes. We bring our sitting bones back. We lift ourselves up into a downward facing dog. Releasing those heels down. Lifting those sitting bones up. Now let's walk our feet all the way over to the hands. Baby steps, one step at a time. We start moving our fingertips up to the shins, and while we do that, we start bending our knees, taking our arms along the feet, moving ourselves into a chair pose. Now try not to arch the spine too much. Try to tuck your tailbone, lengthen, and this way keep yourself active around the baby. And then we're going to lift ourselves up, bring our hands like this. It's interlacing of the fingers. Keep our index finger out, soften the shoulders, and make a soft side bend. Now roll yourself up, reach for the sky, keep those shoulders soft. Let's move ourselves to the other side as well. Inhale, move yourselves up, and while we exhale, we bring our hands back, we start rolling ourselves forward. Breathing in, we lift our fingertips up, and exhale, roll yourselves down. Now let's take a big step back with the right foot first, followed by the left, downward facing dog. Lengthening. Now roll your knees down. Move your hips back. We're staying here for 2 full breaths. So you inhale through the nose, exhale through the nose and through the mouth. And again, if this pose isn't comfortable at all, just roll yourselves up into a seated position. Let's move ourselves back into all fours. Let's tuck our toes, move ourselves up, downward facing dog. And walk our feet all the way over to the top of the mat. Let's bring our fingertips up to the shins, halfway lift, and while we're here, we start bending our knees, stretching our arms, lengthening the spine. Let's move ourselves up, interlacing our fingers, keeping our index finger up. We're going to move the body weight to left. Inhale, roll yourselves up, and exhale, move yourself all the way up. Let's breathe in and breathe out. Hands in front of the heart. Roll yourselves forward, vertebrae for vertebrae. Inhale, hands up. Exhale, big step back, left foot followed by the right, downward facing dog. Let's move our knees down. Let's move our hips back. And you can stay here just a little longer. Maybe you walk the hands to the right side of your mat. You can take a look underneath your armpit if you want. We walk ourselves back. We move ourselves up to hands and knees. Tuck our toes, going back to the downward facing dog. We're going to walk ourselves all the way forward, right away. Now our feet are still behind our hands. We inhale, we lift ourselves up. Now we start bending our knees, taking ourselves into that Utkatasana pose, chair pose. Now while we're here, we're going to take a big step back with our right foot, and our heel is lifted, high lunge. Now our front knee is above the ankle, both of our arms are up, our shoulders are soft. Now our hips are in one line. Hips, pubic bone, belly button, chest, nose. Now roll your back heel down. This is what we call the warrior one pose. Now try not to loosen up that knee, so we want to keep that knee strong. Now our step isn't that big, so we're going to open ourselves up, warrior two, and then we bring our hands in front of the heart and step our feet a little closer in. Now we're going to move ourselves from side to side. It's what we call the goddess pose. We tuck our tailbone, we lengthen the spine, and in this pose, we want to feel like we're dancing with our baby. So if you want, you can bring your hands over to your belly as well. Now, if this is your first pregnancy, you probably have heard of contractions. Now, contractions can happen in the belly, they can happen in the back, they can happen in the legs, and sometimes all three at the same time. It's like a jiggling party in your whole body. We're going to keep this pose. It's a very good one when you have contractions in the legs. So move yourself from side to side. Then we're going to move the weight over to the right. So we roll our left heel off the floor. We stretch both of our arms up. We bend a little, so we're back into that pose, that high lunge pose. And then we roll our back heel down to the floor, warrior one. Now again, our nose, our chest, our belly button, our pubic bone are actually in one line. Now let's open up, warrior two. Bring our hands in front of the heart, move ourselves in a little so those heels move underneath the hips. And this time we're going to open up the arms sideways. So our elbows are right on the height of our shoulders, and we're going to move from side to side. This way we strengthen the shoulders, the upper arms. And we want strong arms, we want a strong back. Keep on moving a bit from left to right. And we're going to move the weight back to our left foot. Step our right foot next. We breathe in, we take both of our arms up. And while we breathe out, we start moving ourselves back into that Utkatasana pose. Let's roll ourselves forward, vertebrae for vertebrae. We inhale, we bring our fingertips up to the shins, halfway lift. Exhale, roll yourselves down all the way. Let's take a big step back with our right foot, followed by our left into a downward facing dog. We start moving our knees down, moving our hips back. We're walking our hands to the other side of the mat if it feels good. Taking a look underneath your armpit. And then we walk ourselves back, and we're going to do the all fours pose first. Now move yourselves back into cow-cat. So we're going to arch our spine, lift up the tailbone, release vertebrae for vertebrae, roll the back of the head all the way over to the top of the back, and then you're going to round your spine all the way up. Now let's do that a few times in a row. Eventually, we use our in-breath to lengthen the spine, tuck the toes, move ourselves up into that downward facing dog, and then walk your feet straight over to your hands. We're going to roll ourselves up, and we do that vertebrae for vertebrae. So take your time. Our feet are still in hip distance, and adjust if you need. So bring your heels together, roll your feet over to your big toes if you need. Hands are in front of the heart. We're going to activate our whole body. So first we start with tucking the tailbone, lifting up our pubic bone a little, and then moving our belly button in towards our baby or babies. Our hands are in front of our heart, and we're going to bring all the weight to our right foot, and then start moving our toes in. Our heels move over to the inside of the ankle. Now, if this is enough, if this feels okay, you stay here. But if you want, you can move your toes over the foot and open up the knee a little. Your hips are still in one line. Your knee just opens a bit. Try not to overstretch that left knee. And then we're going to move our foot over to the calf. Again, if you have any problems around your pelvis or pelvic floor muscles, just drop your toes back down or step it over. Now let's see if you can move your foot a little higher over the knee like a shape of 4. And while you're here, you can start to stretch out the arms. Maybe bring the thumb over the index finger, like the mudra of wisdom. Hands come back, foot steps back. And let's do the same routine at the other side. So first we start with moving our toes in and our heel all the way over to the ankle. Now try not to overstretch that knee of your standing leg. Now soften your face, try not to squeeze it. And let's see if you can move your toes over your foot. Or maybe you can move your foot in. Now try not to push to the inside of the knee. We always keep it against the muscle, so the calf muscle or over the knee fully like a 4. And then we're going to stretch out our arms. Keep that thumb over the index finger. Keep those shoulders soft. Soften your face. Squeezing of the face only gives wrinkles. We want to be long and strong. And I'll tell you a secret. There's not a tree in the world that actually stands still, so it's okay if you move a little. And then we bring our foot back to the floor. We soften that butt as well. Let's breathe in. And we breathe out. We start rolling ourselves forward, vertebrae for vertebrae. We inhale. And we exhale. We're going to roll ourselves down. We take a big step back, left foot followed by the right, downward facing dog. We start moving our knees down. Now, if you have a block, you can use it. What we're going to do is we're going to bring the block in between the feet. Then we're going to roll our sitting bones on top of it. This way you can move yourselves up a little easier into a yoga squat pose. So we drop one foot, both of our hands are on the floor, our butt is resting on the block if you have one, and then we add the second foot. Now let's see if you can deepen those hips a bit. Maybe you want to use the block, or maybe you want to move it to the side. Now let's bring our awareness towards our pelvic floor muscles. And if you've been thinking the whole class, what are those and what is she talking about? Those are the muscles that we use when we really need to go to the bathroom. And the bathroom is about 10 to 15 minutes away from us, and we need to squeeze it. Now, we use them. What we do is we activate them. So we pull them together, we lift them up, and it's almost like an elevator. You're going to lift it up towards your baby. So you lift it, you lift it, you lift it. And while you exhale, you're going to release it. Well, let's do that again. So you activate them, you move them in together, you start lifting and releasing. We're going to do that one more time. So we activate and release. Now, if you still have the block underneath you, you can start to move your hands next and then roll yourselves down on top. Or if you don't, you release your sitting bone and then move yourselves into a cross-legged position. Now, let's bring our hands over to the knees. Let's take a deep inhale and exhale. Let's do that again. Inhale and release. One more time. Let's inhale. And while we exhale, we roll down, we're going to bring both of our knees to the left side of our mat. Then we're going to roll ourselves down. We do that vertebrae for vertebrae. Now we step both of our feet down to the floor. Now we make sure that our heels are facing our bum and our toes are facing the front of the mat. And let's start windshield wipering the knees. We're going to move them a bit from side to side. This way we massage the tailbone but also the sacrum just above. It feels really nice. Now let's move our heels in a little closer, tuck the tailbone. Then we're going to rise our hips. We're going to lift them. Lift, lift, lift. Roll yourselves up to your shoulders. Try not to squeeze your butt too much. Keep them soft. Maybe it feels good to interlace the fingers. Otherwise, you keep your hands on the hips or on the floor. And you start to drop your hips a little. This is on an exhale. And while you inhale, you rise up. Let's do that again. So you roll them down. And you lift them up. One more time, roll them down. Lift them. And then you're going to release vertebrae for vertebrae, really, really slow. And then you're going to move your knees around the belly. And we're going to circle. So we're going to circle to relax the lower back, but also to relax the abdominals. Let's do the same movement to the other side. Move your knees in a little closer. Maybe bring your hands over to the inside of the feet or wrap our peace fingers around our big toes and move ourselves into a happy baby pose. The first time that your baby will find its own feet, you'll probably think back of this pose during your prenatal classes, the happy baby pose. A hip opener just like a yoga squat, and a hip opener just like your warriors and your goddess. But this also gives you grounding. Now make yourself comfortable. We're going to release our feet. Maybe you want to use a cushion in between the knees or something underneath your head. And we're going to roll ourselves over to the left side of our body. And we're going to move ourselves into a fetal position. You can close your eyes and make yourself comfortable. You can start to soften your breath, relax your mind, let go of your thoughts, and maybe during this weird period of time, also of your fears, because everything is a little different right now, not just you, but the world around you as well. It gives us time to slow down, to take more time for ourselves, to take more time for the people we love. Maybe not directly, but there's so many ways to tell them that you love them. By calling them, by sending them pictures, or by FaceTime, or video call. Take your time. Take your time in this pose in your Shavasana. Take your time during the day. Try not to forget to take care of yourself as well. You can take a moment to go back to your intention if you like. The part of achieving, the part of letting go. And maybe you'd like to share that feeling with your baby or with someone you love very, very much. Someone you haven't seen for a while because of this period of time, or maybe just because that's life. And I'd really like to thank you. I'd like to thank you for joining this class, for sharing your energy from a distance, for sharing love and strength. Let's bring our hands over to our forehead, and we bring it there for wisdom. And you can bring your hands over to your mouth, and you bring it there for the truth. Eventually, we bring our hands in front of the heart. We bring it there for love. Thank you. Namaste.